Hello everybody, it's Graeme again for the next episode of Detecting Talk, our weekly little show that we've got going on at the moment. I've been getting a lot of messages this last probably a fortnight or more regarding research. How do I do my research on particular farms and areas that may be quite lucrative to go detecting on? So I hope this episode I can answer a few of those questions. It's not always it's a difficult subject to approach in some respects, because any land out there has potential in my view. You may not think it, and you may think to yourself, I've got some fields that are absolutely awful to detect on, but somewhere in that area there'll be a little pocket of history. You can guarantee it. This island of ours is absolutely crammed with history, and we continuously find things each week, each month, from areas that have been written off, are deemed as being quiet or of no significance in the past. Nobody walked over this piece of land centuries ago. However, you know, we're flipping that on its head and finding all sorts of weird and wonderful things in out of the way areas. So the one thing I will say is, don't dismiss an area quickly. There's too many people out there detecting now that'll dismiss a farm or a particular patch of land, deeming it as dead, but that's not always the case, especially on ploughed arable fields. So we covered a bit of that, didn't we, in the last episode, but I thought that was important just to put that in. But going back to when I first started detecting, we pretty much knocked on any farm we could to gain permission in them days. So we never really did a great deal of site research early doors. Certainly in the early 80s we were quite happy to just detect on farmland that produced modernish finds from around the farm. If we were looking to get a couple of Victorian pennies and Edwardian pennies, then we were happy. However, our thirst grew for finding older things, and that's when we started doing proper site research. So the first thing we did was we picked a particular area that we fancied, in the county of Cumbria, where we did a lot of detecting early doors. We'd get the ordnance survey maps out. We'd have a look at particular villages that have had interest, and of course we looked at where the old footpaths were. So any farms or fields that had footpaths going through them, they're more likely to find we were more likely to find bits and pieces of them particular footpaths, because people had been using them areas and them routes quite significantly over the centuries. So the footpaths, they drew us, they were our interest in particular areas, and of course we gained permission off the farmer. Straight away we headed to the areas on the farm that had the old routes and old footpaths, and we found things like Victoria sixpences and shillings if we were lucky, and maybe a little bit of jewellery here and there. We've even had hammered coins off footpaths in the past. Been lucky enough to find them. So it just goes to show that these footpaths have been in continuous use over the centuries. So that's one area of research that you guys out there coming into the hobby might want to look at. Get your ordnance survey maps out, look at where the footpaths are and the routes, get the permission off the landowner. Happy days. If them footpaths haven't been done by detectorists in the past, and you've got pretty much a good chance of finding some nice things. And of course, what we also did, we didn't religiously stick to the footpath as it was when we were detecting on it. That footpath could have moved slightly over the centuries. So what we did, we spread out a little bit, went back week after week, did 10 metres to the left, 5 metres to the right, or whatever, and we actually found quite a lot of interesting stuff just off the modern footpaths. So that might be a little clue there for you. So yeah, it's that sort of thing that you need to be looking at. The maps are a great resource. They have some really good information on them, and of course the villages themselves in Cumbria, a lot of them date right back to the Doomsday. So one thing that is available now is something called, I think it's called Doomsday Online, which gives you a glimpse of the past, how England and the UK, or well, England was back in 1086. It shows you where the villages are that had a lot of history on way back then, and they were registered in the Doomsday Book. So that tells you if there's a village near you where you're living or you fancy detecting, if that was mentioned in the Doomsday Book, then chances are you're going to find nice things, because that proves to you that there was villages and people living, working, breathing in that particular village way back in 1086. So approach the landowners, see if you can get permission on some of these ancient villages. Well worth a try, even if it's well out the road and there's well out the way and there's nothing much to see now. Way back then it could have been completely different. You know, we did some research recently on a village that's mentioned in the Doomsday Book. Just to look at it, there's a clutch full of houses on some high ground. There's nothing surrounding it, just farmland. But way back in 1086, there was something like 22 households, which is quite significant. They were ploughing the fields in that particular area way back then. There's records to show that. We gained permission, we found some nice hammered coins. It's that sort of thing that you need to be looking at. So always do your research on, and that's a handy little tool, the Doomsday Online link. Another, I'm trying to cram a lot in today, so if I seem to be rushing a little bit, I do apologise. Another thing to consider is your local library. So if you live in a village or a town, you've got access to a library, get yourself down there one of the days or one of the afternoons if you've got a day off, or at the weekend if it's open, and look at some local history reference books. You'll get some really good information out of them books. Some of these books go back to Victorian times. They'll tell you things that have happened in the past around that village, significant events in the past. They'll give you some information on how old the church is. The church in that village may be a modern building now, but years and years ago, centuries before, it was actually a medieval wooden built structure. And the new church that's on there replaced it because it was not fit for repair anymore. So that's the sort of research I used to do and still do to this day. Is you can't beat the old reference books out of the library. You can glean some really interesting information from these books. Certainly worth doing your research on. Now another one, and I've touched on this in the past on some of the other earlier Detecting Talk videos, is the soil. I think the soil is very important. So I always look for areas that have been arable predominantly for a number of centuries. If the soil is very fertile, you know the ancient people would have been right on there because they would have been able to grow their crops in that same fertile soil. So that's well worth doing your homework on. A lot of people say to me, what do I prefer? And one of the questions by email this week was, what do you prefer, arable or pasture? Now, for years and years, all that I was able to detect on was pasture, because Cumbria predominantly is a pastoral county. You know, it's not known for its crop growing. So a lot of our early detecting was on pasture, where we found a lot of Victorian stuff, Georgian stuff if we were lucky, the odd hammered. But everything seemed to be pretty deep in them days, because over the years things sink away. They're not ploughed the fields, so things are just left to sink out of reach in some respects. But I think pasture has some plus points. I really do. So if you're detecting on pasture and you're getting some really deep targets, the chances are the condition of the coins and artifacts that you're bringing up are going to be a heck of a lot better condition than the ones that have been rolling around in the plough soil for 5 or 6 centuries before. So a lot of the hammered coins that we find on arable land, on ploughed land, have got little chips out of them, they've got broken bits missing, they've got bits missing 3/4 of a coin, because of the agricultural process that they've been subjected to over the years has took its toll on a lot of the coins. We're quite lucky if we get full straight coins off arable land, whereas on pasture, if it's old pasture where it's been used extensively for whatever grazing, people have been on there for whatever reason in the past, the coins and artifacts seem to be in a lot better condition than they do off arable. So there's pros and cons of both. I do most of my detecting on arable land because the plough brings up the older stuff to the surface every now and then, and we're lucky enough to reap the rewards off the back of that. However, I never dismiss pasture. I enjoy pasture detecting. I think it's underrated. I think everybody runs and heads to the ploughed fields, which you can understand, but there's a lot of pasture out there, especially up here in the north, that is certainly worth investigating. So if that's any advice I can give to you, there's no, I don't think personally, there's not one that has an advantage over another, although if I had to choose, it would always be arable. But I'm not dismissing pasture. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, we're lucky enough to have lots of permission and of different landowners, and most of it is arable. However, one story I've got to tell you very quickly is we've been detecting on a particular farm for a number of years now, and it's all 90% arable. We've had some nice finds off it, but the farmer did mention to us a few years ago that he had a couple of pasture fields. Now, we completely dismissed these because we always headed to the hot spots, the arable ploughed fields that we've done so well off in the past. But one particular weekend we were down detecting in South Yorkshire, and the crops had been in and we missed out on some good fields, so in desperation we headed to some of this pasture that has actually been nibbled down quite a bit by the sheep, and we thought we'll give it a go, and we give it a go, and we found plenty of nice coins and artifacts on there. And this was quite deep pasture. There was nothing in the first 3 or 4 inches. Everything seemed to sink down to around about 8 or 9 inches. But we found some really lovely condition buckles. A lovely ring brooch came up. Some nice hammered coins came up. Some milled silver came up. And we thought, we're missing a trick here. It's in a historical area. It's round the village. Okay, it's pasture, but it just goes to show it does produce finds. So we've never, since them days, we've never really dismissed pasture since, and we still do these fields from time to time, and it still produces. So keep going at whatever's available. If it's in the right area, you guys will find. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Now, moving on, I hope that covers it. I hope that's been helpful. If there's any questions, you guys will know. You do your research maybe a little bit differently to me. There's a lot of online stuff out there now that you can tap into. Google Earth, for example, LiDAR or LiDAR maps and things like that. So there's a lot of resources that you can tap into to do good site research, I think. That's what I'm trying to say. So, but if you guys have got any other ideas, feel free to mention it on the comments, and we'll certainly take them on board. So I hope that helps. Moving on quickly, this is completely different now. Every week I log on to social media in some capacity, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. There's so many platforms out there now, it's unbelievable. And I always see each week, every week, somebody out there detecting losing their pinpoint probe. And you think to yourself, how do they do it? How do these guys lose the pinpointer? They're expensive pieces of kit. Some of them are bright coloured. Some of them have anti-lost alarms on them if they're turned on. But each week I see people losing their pinpointers. Now you may laugh, you may say, how careless can they be losing their pinpointer? But there must be dozens out there in the fields lying around that have been lost by detectorists. But I don't laugh. I don't have a wry smile because I've done it myself, believe it or not. I've never been a fan of pinpointers in the past, but just over the last half decade or so, I've been using one more and more, and I find them quite handy. But I think it was about 2010, 2011, I was detecting with a group of guys. Red hot day, we all sat down in a bit of a huddle in the field because it was red hot and there wasn't a lot of stuff coming up, so we just sat down there for a bit of a discussion and a bit of a talk. And I must have got up and my probe dropped out of my pocket. Lost. Only realised when I got back to the car that my probe had gone. I'd only used it twice. So I was a little bit sore. So I'm trying to give you guys some advice in how not to lose your probe, and there's a simple, effective answer to it all. And that is, there's my probe. I have it attached to a heavy duty military spec lanyard. I have this on me every week. That's my own particular probe, my own brand of probe, if that makes sense. I have this bit, the Velcro bit, that's attached to my belt, locked in. I never lose it. I'll never lose that probe again. You can see the O-ring that we put through. So simple for, you know, we stock these. This isn't a plug for you guys to go out there and buy out, you know, the Unearthed lanyards. Any lanyard would do. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? Any lanyard would do. But these are really strong. These are the strongest on the market by a long way. heavy duty, and they have to be in the detecting game, I think. Anything less than heavy duty usually breaks or doesn't last 12 months. But get yourself a lanyard. You're not going to lose your probe. It's an investment. You're paying a fortune for these. Stick it on a lanyard. So simple to do. Honestly, it's just common sense. Like I said, I have this on me all the time now because I do not want to lose this piece of kit. It's that valuable to me. Out in the field, valuable. So if that's any advice I can give you guys, stick it on a lanyard, clip it to your belt or your fines pouch or whatever you've got round you. I have mine on a harness as well. So simple. So simple. Another thing is, I don't often do this, and I've never done this yet, I don't think, on any of our YouTube videos, but there's a guy out there that detects on his own, I think, quite a bit, and I've recently come across him on YouTube, and he's a detectorist. He enjoys his detecting. It's a no-frills sort of detecting style that he's got, if that's the right word. He finds all sorts of weird and wonderful things. He's not one of these guys that's out looking for silver and gold all the time. He's happy with whatever he finds. And I really enjoy his videos. He's probably one of only a handful of people out there that I actually watch detecting on YouTube, because he's just an enjoyable guy to watch. And his name is Robbie. Let's have a look at his name, his surname. Robbie Cole. I've got it wrote down in front of me, so if you see me looking down, that's why. Robbie Cole, metal detector. The Dinnington detector, he's classed himself as. Give him a look on YouTube. He's a great guy. He's a nice fella. He's a warm fella. You can warm to him and you can enjoy his videos. He's not one of these guys that does silly dances with silly glasses on and hats on and pulling faces. He goes out there, he finds loads of weird and wonderful things. He does little YouTube videos and I enjoy him. So you guys, give him a subscribe if you get a chance. He's a great guy, honestly. You'll enjoy watching his videos, I do. Really down to earth. So keep up the good work, Rob, or Robbie. I hope that helps. I hope that's covered a little bit of information for you guys. I know the time's ticking away on the clock here, and I don't want to go over too long, because people end up getting bored of listening to my northern tones for too long. One other thing before I disappear, well, two other things, is the last video I did on the counterfeit machines. I do apologise to some people that may have been offended by my accents that I put on, but they weren't done for any other purpose other than sort of giving you guys an idea of who they were. They weren't racist outbursts or anything like that. It was just me doing what comedians do on the stage sometime and take off other people's accents. It was as simple as that. So it wasn't meant to harm anybody. If anybody was offended, I do apologise. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a pretty straight talking guy. You know, I'm not one to call out people just to poke fun at them, I guess. Lastly, next week we are going to be talking about back to a little bit of information on fines, metal detecting fines, what to do with them, how to clean them, how to look after them, and that sort of thing. So tune in next week, guys, and if you get a chance, click the subscribe button. I'm going to try to grow this channel now, because I think it's valuable to get the message out to you guys. There's so much trash on YouTube detecting now, it's just unbelievable. I see some horrific videos of guys digging iron up all the time, thinking they're this and they're not, and trying to give poor advice. I think there is some relevance to these videos that I do, without blowing my own trumpet a little bit. So if you feel free to subscribe to us, and I will see you all next week. If you're out this weekend in the cold, wrap up warm and keep bringing them fines to the surface. Okay, you guys take care.